Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right. Hello. How are we?
Very good.
Hey.
So that reminds me of Fat Albert. Remember Fat
Hey,
Albert?
hey.
It's like,
Glad to meet you today.
It's Fat Albert.
I do remember.
I have to say that when I see things like that, I just think if you put that in front of my children and said, "Oh my God, you're going to love this. Watch it," they'd be like, "Are you kidding me? You watched what? You watched that? Yeah, a show called Fat Albert."
Yeah, hang on, but you put me onto the new version of Wurzel Gummidge the other day.
Oh, how is that? Please tell me, what is your opinion of that?
Well, did you ever watch the original?
No, but I was aware of it, but I certainly didn't watch it. No.
Look, I thought it was okay. I watched a couple of episodes. If you've watched the original, it's just about as mad as that. It's just as odd. And they all came from the Southwest, so they all had the carrot munching accent. They all do that. All right, me lover. All right.
I know, that was hysterical.
Yeah, there's plenty of that. It was very nostalgic for me. I think I ended up watching 3 or 4 episodes just for the accent because I was like, oh, it's the southwest of England,
I found it
my
very
old
odd.
stomping ground.
Your old stomping ground.
And Clarkey, what about you guys? What have you been up to?
A bit of work, a bit more work. We have been home all weekend, which has been interesting. So, yeah, it's been quite nice. Nice and relaxing, although I feel super tired for having done absolutely nothing. I'm going to go with that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Everybody sounds a bit drained. I think I've had one of those weeks too. We've had another heat wave here. I think it's the 4th one we've had since the beginning of December. And it's
Is it
cooled
all
down
just
massively
one
today,
heat
but
wave?
well, do you know what? So it was 43 in central Perth yesterday. It's not quite so hot here on the coast, but I mean, that is hot. But it's that thing where it's like day after day. I mean, you're in air conditioning. It's all quite manageable, really. But after it's like that for a couple of days, everything becomes hot all the time and it never seems to cool down. And that becomes boring and tiring and, I don't know, agitating.
Yes.
It's cooled down a lot today, but only this afternoon. So hopefully everyone will chill out a bit. It's a little bit stressy, when it gets a little bit highly strung.
It's too hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too hot.
It's sort of like when Perth does summer, it's like, okay, we're ready now. And it's like someone turns the heating on and they'll leave it on. And then that's what we do. But the same thing happened with winter. You guys get lots of lovely bits and pieces in between and some interesting weather. We don't really seem to have much interesting weather. I love storms and stuff and nothing. Dull.
We've had a few of those, yeah.
Yeah.
I hesitate and shudder to ask, but what are we drinking?
Wow.
Anything
I'll
interesting?
answer that one first if you like, Swanny.
Yes.
So we did a bit of dog sitting last night for a friend. And
You're going to say you did a bit of dogging.
Jesus.
Sorry, go on.
That's gone off on a very different tangent and up to the ante of this podcast very quickly. So we're having a Goddess 2021 Pink Pinot Grigio, which we haven't had before. It's from Artemis Wines, and it's actually quite nice. It's a lovely little gift for dog sitting, and it's delicious, which makes it even more special. How about you?
Excellent.
I don't want to disappoint everybody. Do you know what? If I could have a drink right now, if I could have been more organised, I would love, like a big icy Paloma. But no, I'm just on the water, I'm afraid. Trial by water, trial by dull. Sorry.
You're going to start doing my fantasy wine today is.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be good. You could also do trial by waterboarding, because I think that's a good way to get a confession out of someone.
Bit harsh.
Not for you, but that could be something to keep in mind for towards the end of this podcast.
I'm drinking one of my current faves, the sugar-free Cruiser Mango Raspberry. And that's mostly because I went to rehearsal, so I was sober as a judge all day, which is fine. And I was just a bit tired. And so I worry that if I had a glass of wine at this point in time, I'd be asleep. So I'm having a Cruiser and I'm looking forward to cruising through this podcast.
I see what you did there.
Shall we also introduce ourselves?
Yes.
I'm Schmitty.
And I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are
Trial by
Wine. Wine!
Cool. So who's got a story for us today?
Well, I thought I would try and pick up where we left off on the John Wayne Gacy.
Oh my lord! I'm
Saga,
surprised.
for the word.
Yeah, I didn't think you'd come back to it this early. So this is
That's
exciting.
super quick, yeah.
I hadn't planned to. I thought I'd leave it a little bit longer. And to be honest, I still think we could probably do three episodes on it. But I thought we've had some sort of nicer ones of late, so I feel like we're not totally going to be a Debbie Downer by going into this context. But yeah, it's not particularly light, but it is really, really quite interesting. And it's interesting this time when I've started to look at things, there are so many other things that are coming up now that, you know, when you look at an article or a few articles to start with and it's like all pretty much saying the same stuff. Now I'm starting to find some inaccuracies and other things that have come up since, but I don't always know how to loop them back together based on one person mentioning it or one source mentioning it. And a lot of the stuff is stuff that's been not quite so much happened after the fact, but, you know, with other advancements in, you know, DNA and stuff, you know, they're finding out, you know, different things about the case all the time. So it's a bit of a moving feast in that respect. But I've got some sources.
Fab Bible. Mentalfloss.com.
The first
Clownpassions.com. And that promo code, try by one, clownpassions20.
Oh, God. So the first source is a series which is called Devil in Disguise. That was produced by Peacock in the US. And it is brilliant. I mentioned that last time. But this time I've also looked at some other articles by authors on Esquire and the New Yorker. And as a bit of a joke, I'd like to start off with Lad Bible. I went to Lad Bible to find out what they had to say because I thought that might at least lighten the mood before we have to trudge through the mire of, you know, what he's up to. And it sort of will give us a bit of a, you know, a little bit of a recap, top line of where we've left off with episode 1 of John Wayne Gacy for anyone who, well, even like myself, can not recall all the details because there are so many. But let's start off with what the Lad Bible has to say. Of course, they've used a picture of Pennywise from Stephen King's It as a little way to get people in. They've sort of said, when last year's It premiered, it reinforced people's fear of clowns. While the film adaptation of Stephen King's legendary novel had a decent amount of comedy thrown into the mix, it's hard to deny that some scenes were enough to scare Hannibal Lecter. And they go on to say, well, you know, thankfully he's not real, but of course we do know someone who is. Introducing John Wayne Gacy, a serial killer who had the nickname the Killer Clown because of what he did when he wasn't butchering kids and young adults.
Oh, God.
While he was only convicted of 12 murders, he actually tortured, sexually assaulted and killed 33 teenage boys and young men over a 7-year period.
That's interesting. Sorry. When you
The
did the telling last week, I thought he had... Oh, is it because they couldn't identify them? Sorry. Anyway.
Yes, that comes. A lot of it comes out correct. Yeah.
Right.
So, and also, and I'll come on to this later. It's also what was happening in the state of Illinois and how they viewed the death penalty at the time some of the murders took place versus others. So there's a division in between when someone was murdered and what the sentence they were able to give. But we'll come into that. This is just as I said. This is just what the Lad Bible has got to say.
Okay.
In 1967, he started sexually abusing teenagers by promising to show them porn films at his house, blackmailing them or tricking them into thinking he was doing experiments for research. Despite being sentenced to 10 years behind bars, you'll recall, he only served 18 months and was released with a year's probation. And many, many more of his young JC members, for anyone who recalls the fact that he was promoting that chapter that whilst he was in prison. Unbelievable. When he was paroled, he tried to re-enter society by starting his own construction business. He was helpful in his community and was even given the title of director of Chicago's annual Polish Constitution Day Parade. But his membership with a local moose club was what got him the Killer Clown Monkeyer. He found out about a Joker Club where members would dress up as clowns and perform at events. Gacy invented Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown, designed his own costumes and did a few gigs. One of the tricks was getting out of a pair of handcuffs, which he would also use on his victims before raping, torturing, and eventually killing them. He'd already killed 3 teenage boys by the time he adopted this creepy clown persona and proceeded to butcher dozens more. When police started investigating him, they sent surveillance detectives to keep an eye on him. One evening, Gacy invited the detectives to join him for dinner and said, you know, clowns can get away with murder. So that's a top-line Lad Bible introduction to old mate John Wayne Gacy.
Mm.
Yes.
Super unfunny clown.
Oh, It's interesting, like a lot of the stuff that I find to be particularly disturbing is the timeline of events. Because, like in your mind, you go through something, he did this and he did that. So much of the stuff is happening like at the same time. So, for instance, when he's murdering people, he gets married and moves a woman in after he's already murdered somebody. Like there's stuff like that where you think, then he gets divorced and then you'll think that's when he starts to murder. It's just not like that. And it's also, the reference there saying he'd already murdered people when he became a clown. Like it's all this macabre stuff that doesn't neatly fit in a row where you think, okay, so I can track a downward trend. It's all over the shop.
Life doesn't pause whilst he does his murders. It actually is chopping and changing in between.
It's quite crazy. So what I thought I'd do is I thought I'd start with going through top line a few of the murders where that gives us a sort of a picture of how he operated and who he was targeting. Because there are, as I said, there are 33. And I think there are still 6 that are unidentified. And that's even after DNA has been advanced and they've been able to locate a few more of the victims' families. And I think so much of what is important about this is the type of people who were his victims were young men, some of them were really young, like 14, 15. Some of them were troubled. Some of them were moving around. Some of them were sort of these disenfranchised youth who it was really like if they went missing, some of them were noticed, obviously, their families and that went to great lengths to try and locate them. But others sort of were totally under the radar. And I think as a result of that, it wasn't until stuff sort of has come later where they're like, actually, come to think of it, we never heard of that person again. Perhaps it's worth looking into. And I find that a really sad indictment on those people's lives to start with, that they weren't really being loved or cared for in a way that it was so noticeable that their absence was felt.
Yeah.
I think that's really sad. I mean, how do you get to that number? Who was looking out for these people? Do you think the same thing would have happened if they were young women? I just don't know.
Yes, there are a lot of lost people in the world.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Thousands and thousands of people go missing every year and are not necessarily reported, or they're reported by someone who knew them but it wasn't their family.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who run away and drop through the cracks. And it is very sad.
Oh, God.
Not just run away, but, like leave their families, just drop out of society a bit or just move around enough and don't have forwarding addresses or people who care enough, frankly.
That's what it is. And I mean, it was a different time in the sense that, if you said you were heading off somewhere in the 70s, not like you're going to be contactable on your mobile or by email.
That's
It was a different time. I understand that. And sometimes I think, gosh, it's amazing they knew where anybody was, really. If you didn't go to a phone booth and call in or whatever else, well, that's why I think it was very easy to just disappear. But that's a lot of young people for one person to have managed and, to use a similar sort of modus operandi and to knock them all off. Obviously doesn't sit comfortably with me, but, he got away with murder. And the more I look at this case or cases, the people around him, it beggars belief that it got this far. It really does.
Schmitty, I'm going to challenge you to try to make as many jokes as you can that hopefully will be appropriate, although I'm sure when you do the editing, you'll just go, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But I think our challenge needs to be to try to find humour as Carla tells this amazing but also quite dark story.
I agree.
Understood.
Challenge accepted?
Yes.
As always.
Yes.
Because the thing was, there were so many things, because what we mustn't lose sight of was the fact that in the first John Wayne Gacy episode was we couldn't believe how motivated this chap was. Remember Mr. KFC, the guy who got the mini golf in the prison. And I said the jail would be named after him if he hadn't been busted on this.
Yes.
He was so...
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God. He was just a doer.
He's an overachiever.
He was an overachiever. He was the guy who was the networking king. Remember there was the photograph. Oh, it was the first lady, and I can't remember.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
who was she? Which first lady was it? He was photographed with her. It was just unbelievable the connections that he had because he just didn't stop. He didn't stop. He was a doer, and I mean, well, I think I mentioned last time he did all these murders between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So
he never
had
slept.
big days. I don't know. He had time to sleep.
Yeah,
I really don't think he had time to.
Yeah. And the neighbours heard men screaming and didn't do anything about it, which I'm particularly fond of.
Yeah, I know. That bothered us hugely last time, isn't it? So the murder...
I mean, we do karaoke here and neighbours hear
Oh,
it.
sure they
And
do.
I admit that I'm not a very good singer, so quite obviously people who go, I think someone's dying there. But they all just know that's the way I sing, so that's okay.
I think your neighbours, though, also hear the same songs every time. So, we've got a bit of... Let's think about favourite songs as sung by you two in your karaoke. It's like they would, by now, they'd be
Yes.
like, oh, it's just the boys, because there's that Paul Kelly number, and there's a bit of Tenterfield Sadler, there's a bit of...
Oh.
The Waves. A
Yeah,
little
there's
bit of
some
Ken
waves,
Lee.
bit of Ken Lee. That's right. So they know because they know through your favourite playlist.
Repertoire. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. I think that the
But
repertoire
we
next door
have
neighbours
got-
for the John Wayne Gacy was slightly different. It was screams.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Blood curdling screams, strangulation. Oh, that sounds. Oh, they're at it again. Oh God. Oh,
Yeah, that's
can
crazy
hardly
neighbours.
sleep. It's hard to sleep over here.
I wonder who's
I know I
dying
said
this
last
time.
time that quote said, "Oh yeah, actually on reflection, we did hear things and we couldn't sleep." I read somewhere else last night that someone said that they had reported hearing screams and they'd reported it to the police, but the police turned up and when John Wayne Gacy answered the front door, he said, "Oh no, I'm good. It's all fine." And
Oh,
there were
no
lots
worries
of
then.
things that I keep reading like this, and I think,
Yeah.
well, did they really turn up? Because surely, if there was a house full of bodies, there must have been something before we get to that. I mean, we get to that point, obviously, but how do you get away with it for this long? You're basically sitting on top of all these bodies. Anyway, so let's start with his first murder. Gacy's first known.
Or could we?
Please do. This occurred on January
God.
3, 1972. So basically his killing spree...
Happy New Year.
Oh, God. According to Gacy's later account, following a family party on the evening of January 2, he decided to drive into the Civic Centre to view a display of ice sculptures in the early hours of the following morning. He then lured a 16-year-old named Timothy Jack McCoy from Chicago's Greyhound bus terminal into his car. McCoy was travelling from Michigan to Omaha, Nebraska. Again, so that I can see that, young boy moving through town, that would happen constantly.
Yeah, and that wasn't the first time he'd lured a kid because he'd been sexually assaulting and raping kids.
Yeah.
Well, young men and probably kids, but this is the first time he killed one. Yeah.
Yes, that we know of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Gacy took him on a sightseeing tour of Chicago and then drove him to his home with the promise that he could spend the night and be driven back to the station in time to catch his bus. Prior to McCoy's identification, he was known simply as a Greyhound bus boy, and that he becomes quite infamous in, the suite of victims that John Wayne Gacy was responsible for. Gacy claimed he woke early the following morning to find McCoy standing in his bedroom doorway with a kitchen knife in his hand. He then jumped from his bed and McCoy raised both arms in a gesture of surrender, tilting the knife upwards and accidentally cutting Gacy's forearm. Gacy twisted the knife from McCoy's wrist, banged his head against the bedroom wall, kicked him against the wardrobe and walked towards him. McCoy then kicked Gacy in the stomach, doubling him over. Gacy then grabbed McCoy, shouting, "Motherfucker, I'll kill you." He then wrestled McCoy to the floor and stabbed him repeatedly in the chest as he straddled him. As McCoy lay dying, Gacy claimed he washed the knife in his bathroom, then went to his kitchen and saw an open carton of eggs and a slab of unsliced bacon on the kitchen table. McCoy had also set the table for two. He had walked into Gacy's room to wake him, absent-mindedly carrying the kitchen knife in his hand. This is what Gacy has told them in his admission. Gacy buried McCoy in his crawl space, which we discussed last time, under the house, and later covered his grave with a layer of concrete. In an interview several years after his arrest, Gacy said that immediately after killing McCoy, he felt totally drained, yet noted that as he stabbed McCoy and as he listened to the gurgulations and gasping for air, that he had experienced a mind-numbing orgasm. He added, "That's when I realised that death was the ultimate
That's when I
thrill."
realised I'm a sick fucker.
I think we probably knew that was
I
coming.
never want to hear the word gurgulations again. And I know I just said it, but
I feel like it's been made up.
There's no-
Gurgulations. Is it a real word?
Are you
yeah,
being a
that's
bit of
right,
a
but
truth
there's no other
stretcher?
context.
Is that truth stretching?
It's actually a quote from
Or a
him.
lyrical
So
poet.
I think maybe John Wayne Gacy could be known as a bit of a truth stretcher. Gurgulations. What a shit word that is. Why would you even...
I feel like that's a word that lad Bibles should use.
It's also a strange thing to say, unless, of course, he had no remorse whatsoever and he wasn't trying to get out of anything, to say, oh, yeah, this guy came in, there was a tussle, I stabbed him because initially I thought he was going to attack me.
Yeah.
It turns out he was just making me breakfast. So, oopsies.
He was going to scramble my eggs and not poach them.
Do you find it odd that he'd even say that, though, even if that were the case? You know, you didn't want to just stick with the thing and saying, in self-defence, then you won't believe it. I walked out and he'd prepared his breakfast.
Yeah, whoops.
Silly bugger, aren't I?
But I think by that stage, he's so gone, isn't he? Like, his character has just been assassinated. There's probably nothing left to defend.
Yeah, he was not a...
Might as well just tell the world how messed up he is.
The second time he murdered, this person remains unidentified. Gacy said the second time he committed murder was around January 1974. So that's a whole year later, isn't it?
2 years later.
That's right. 2 years later. Because once the things start to escalate, they go crazy. But to start with, that's right. So in 1972, he, I think that's when he murders number one. Then he marries Carol Hoff. Carol Hoff, and remember her daughters move into the house, the Hoff.
Yeah, Hoff moves in, yeah.
The Hoff, so difficult to find information on the Hoff. She has gone to ground, and understandably so. Like, I've been trying to find anything about her and her daughters, having lived in that house, but there's really nothing there. They're not talking, not surprisingly. So 2 years later, so we've gone from January 1972 to January 1974. This victim remains unidentified. Gacy strangled him and then placed the body in his closet before burial. And this is interesting. This is when, he's starting to learn about his, and I'll use this, knowingly, it's a terrible thing, but his craft is such when he really starts to do this. He later said that bodily fluids leaked from the victim's mouth and nose, staining his carpet. As a result, Gacy regularly stuffed cloth rags, the victim's own underwear, or a sock into the mouths of subsequent victims to prevent such leakage from occurring. So he's learning on the job. Isn't that revolting?
No one wants leakage, but come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's another word, leakage, gurgulations. 2 words now marked forever. Never
Murder
to be
is
used.
messy business. I don't think, it's interesting what I think we see on the movies and whatever else. I think the reality of some of the ways, the brutal way that he has murdered these people and the things that he's done to them, it would be, nothing that you'd ever want.
I could quite naively think that strangling someone would be a clean murder, but when you start to hear about leakage in the closet...
Correct.
No, I think because it's like when people hang themselves in that, their eyes bulge and like it does a whole lot of damage, obviously, to the throat, and then the brain is cut off from oxygen, and so it's all horrible. It's really horrible, and the tongue swells. Like, it's awful.
Note to self: if you do put someone in the closet after strangling them, dispose of them
some
before
plastic down
leakage
first.
happens.
Yeah,
have the foresight to them tarp down.
First, yeah.
And take your clothes out too, because they'll stink.
Don't put them in the closet, would be my advice.
Yeah, let's put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
I just can't. I mean, the dog shat on the carpet the other night, and getting the Bissell cleaner out to get rid of that. I can't imagine how you get the stench of this kind of stuff out of your house when your new bride and her kids are moving in. Oh gosh, I better get some Febreze. I might get them on the antibacterial and give it a good squirt. This is the stuff that time and time again, and it doesn't. Not even this case. There are so many things that we've covered that you think that a normal person would walk in and say, "Oh God, what's that smell?" And then over time, really, what is that smell? We've got to investigate that. Things that really bug me. I walk in, I think, like our house today, having had the air conditioning on non-stop through a heat wave, turn the air conditioning off. The house smells kind of hot and stale, and I'm like, "Oh God, we need a fresh breeze," and there's no breeze. Things like that, and I'm walking around thinking, I'm pretty sure if there were 23 bodies under here, I'd have a fair sense of oh God, what's wrong with the drains? Do you know what I mean?
100%.
That's what I'm like. You know what I mean?
100%.
At what point do you go, it's all right, put up with it?
I agree. I reckon about 8 weeks ago, there was a rat, and I had put the poison out for it. And so as some form of revenge, the rat didn't kill itself, it died in the gutter above the door where I walk in. Yeah, it went,
I'll show you.
That's right. I'm not long for this world. Allow me to drag myself to in front of her door so that as I rot, she can enjoy the miasma of my death. And it's very dramatic.
I hope you're happy now.
Exactly. That's exactly what it did, though. And it took about, I reckon,
Happy deer.
4 days of walking and going, oh, something dead. I kept looking underneath, like I was underneath the bungalow trying to find whatever it was. And then eventually I stood back and I saw where the flies were. And I thought, oh, okay, there's something up in the gutter. And I got up and I got it out and it was disgusting. But that's just a rat, a little rat.
So here, I think if you were trying to disguise the fact that you had dead bodies, you could just say a possum died in the roof because I don't know if you've ever had that happen.
No.
But
it's a stench.
the stink.
It's horrendous.
Oh, I used to work at a place where possums used to die in the walls quite regularly, and all you could do
that's what they told you, Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
For all you
that's
know,
right.
something else much more nefarious was happening. Yeah.
Exactly. They could have been burying bodies in the crawl space. But yeah, it was just, you just get like a week or something where it was just awful to be in the office.
Oh,
gross.
That is
Quite
foul.
gross.
So 6 months later, July 31, 1975, an 18-year-old PDM employee disappeared. His name was Butkovich.
Sorry, don't make me laugh. That's awful. This is.
And I'm more laughing because I don't think I'm pronouncing it very nicely. Yeah, Butkovich. Butkovich.
Anyway.
B-U-T, Butkovich.
That PDP.
I'd go with Butkovich.
We'll take it.
PDM?
PDM. That was his company.
Yeah.
Yeah, his construction company. Right.
Yeah. And a lot of people have an association with that came to their demise, whether it be because that's what he used a lot of the time to
good way to
meet
meet
people, to get people
meet
to work,
people.
And
make
he was
friends,
always,
influence, and murder.
correct, and offering young people quick money, easy money, and good money apparently.
Painting, decorating, and murder? Is that what it's?
Do you know what? I couldn't remember what it was. It was painting, decorating, and something.
I think in murder, maintenance maybe. But
Yes, I think you're right.
Murder.
I think you're right because I was thinking about that this morning, thinking, "What's PDM?" I must check. Can't remember. The day before his disappearance, Butkovich had confronted Gacy over 2 weeks' outstanding back pay. Butkovich's father,
Fair.
a Yugoslav immigrant, called Gacy, who claimed he was happy to help search for his son, but was sorry Butkovich had run away. When questioned by police, Gacy said Butkovich and 2 friends had arrived at his house demanding the overdue pay, but they had reached a compromise and all 3 had left. Over the following 3 years, Butkovich's parents called police more than 100 times, urging them to investigate Gacy further. You know, this is...
Failure.
It comes
Just
back to
failure
him
upon
time and
failure.
time again. And, you know, I'll read another one and it'll point to him, or they'll have gone to his front door. And I'm like, how many people didn't make that connection? It's just unbelievable.
So they obviously rang him a lot, but did they have anything that was any kind of evidence or whatever? Because I could
Not at
imagine
that
if
point.
you're the police and you get the same call 100 times over 3 years, you would start pretty quickly discounting
Well, I think that there's a
And-
difference between getting the same call from one person 100 times versus getting lots of calls from different people when you're starting to, you know, when it starts to come together, it starts to come
Sure.
together really quickly. But, I mean, it took an awful long time to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But I think I could imagine why, if you had the same people ringing you saying, you've got to look into him,
Yeah.
you're going, what's that based on?
And if you had
Yeah.
done a cursory look and there was nothing to see,
Yeah.
then you'd just sort of go, look, we have looked into it, it's fine.
I even tried to look in the window at one point, but then realised it was dirty and I couldn't be bothered going inside because it stunk. So
It smelled, yeah.
It smelled
I think
really
a
bad.
possum
There
had
was
died in the
leakage.
wall. Yeah.
yeah, there's no way I was going in.
Yeah.
So that Gacy later admitted to encountering Butkovich exiting his car on the corner of West Lawrence Avenue, waving to attract his attention. According to Gacy, Butkovich approached his car stating, "I want to talk to you." Gacy invited Butkovich into his car, then invited him back home to settle the issue, you know, happily, over the overdue wages. However, at his home, Gacy offered Butkovich a drink, then conned him into allowing his wrist to be cuffed behind his back. And remember, we talked about this last time, which is this joke
trick.
that, you know, this trick that he does, which basically gets them immobilised. Gacy later confessed to having sat on the kid's chest for a while before he strangled him. He stowed Butkovich's body in his garage, intending to bury the body later in the crawl space. When his wife and stepdaughters returned home earlier than expected, Gacy quickly buried Butkovich's body under the concrete floor of the tool room extension of his garage in an empty space where he had initially intended to dig a drain tile. I don't know how you do that quickly, but if that's your other option, quick, someone's home. I don't know that I could bury someone and hide them that quickly. Do you?
No.
Under a concrete floor too.
I don't understand that. Yes, I don't know how you do that.
I'm intrigued by the whole. I'm going into his house to discuss how we're going to resolve the outstanding wage issue, but then I'll let him put handcuffs on me. Imagine the anxiety and the stress and the kind of, you'd be kind of
gropable,
pumped up a little bit, going, this bloke's a flog, and I've got to get my money and get out of here. And then, oh no, put your handcuffs on. Like, where does that trust then come from? Yeah, if you went home and if you went there to have a few drinks and a bit of fun,
yes, I see what you're saying.
That would be understandable. Yeah. If you go in there with the intent of trying to get money back, you've obviously got not much trust and not much respect for this bloke. But all right then, go on, do that funny trick on me.
Yeah, it's odd.
Oh, what have I got myself in here?
But they were all quite young. Yeah, but they were young.
Yeah, and no, but I don't mean that on the as a reflection on the poor kid. I mean, he obviously has some, like you said, charisma, or I don't know what it is, but there's something about him that make people want to trust him. And yeah, it's incredible.
So this sort of period of his life, things start to sort of pick up, and I know that I talked about this last time. So in 1975, his business is starting to expand. So he's feeling like quite flush, I think, with both success in terms of his business. He freely admits that in 1975 was also when he began to increase the frequency of his excursions out to get sex with young males, and he often referred to these jaunts as cruising. So he called sort of 1975 on the cruising.
I made a joke about cruising with my cruiser. Ugh, yeah. Ugh. I wish I'd known then what I know now.
All of the stories that we talk about.
Yeah, this is where it all starts to really kick in for him. I think at this point he starts to find his stride, and he's.
So just to be clear, there were people he was having sex with that he wasn't killing.
Yes, yeah, right. I believe so. If I understand it, I think there was so much going on. As we've said before, he just was a very busy guy. In terms of murdering people, it starts in 72, and then a 2-year break, and then an 8-month break. But it starts to really from about 75 onwards. And after his divorce, I think, which was 76, then he's free agent. Yeah.
I was just about to ask that because I seem to recall it was around 76 that he told the Hoff that he was never going to have sex with her again, and that while he was bisexual, he actually preferred to have sex with men or something.
And the Hoff thought, the house stinks. Just, it's not worth it. I'm out. No worries. Thanks for your time.
You know what? Sex with you is not so great either. I'm out.
Could you imagine? Oh, let's not even say, can you imagine? Because that is one fucked up thing to say, really, isn't it? Could you imagine? Carla, please.
So
no one's
wanting
to imagine
joke
that.
You do.
The Hoffman.
But wasn't it Mother's Day in 1976 was the last time they had sex?
That's a very good memory. Yeah. So he lived largely alone after, although we'll come on to some men moved in and out. But they were his cruising years, as he referred to them, and that was when there was that shift. And again, this was what we talked about last time with reference to the neighbours. So they said that although he was gregarious still and civic-minded, remember he hosted all these parties, there was some erratic behaviour that was starting to be noticed after the divorce. Seeing him, a little bit more openly keeping company with young males, the car coming and going early hours of the morning, all hours, I guess, lights coming on at early hours. But again, no one really is dobbing on him except for the one neighbour later recollected. For several years, the sounds of muffled, high-pitched screaming, shouting and crying had repeatedly awakened her and her son in the early morning hours.
For several years.
It's just remarkable. That would mess with you, surely, wouldn't it, for life, knowing that you listened to some of that, you didn't do enough.
I know that I've admitted this before, that I'm a total Gladys Kravitz, and I'm like a curtain twitcher and, like to keep my eye on things, and I'm very security minded, and I lock every door and I try and keep an eye. If I hear something in the background, I'm always ready and watching her things. So honestly, if that was going on anywhere near us, I'd be all over it because I'd be shit scared. Yeah. Irrespective of what was happening to somebody else, which would be terrifying. I would be terrified to be hearing those kind of sounds in the dark of night. Could you imagine it? I wouldn't just go, oh, what an inconvenience. I'm trying to get to sleep here. Oh,
do you mind?
Oh, goodness me. I might have to put my earplugs in. rude. How very dare they?
I wish we hadn't bought into this neighbourhood. There's people dying all the time, and it's so
Those
hard
torturous,
to
murderous
sleep.
screams I can hear, often between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So a month after his divorce was finalised, Gacy abducted and murdered 18-year-old Daryl Sampson. He was last seen alive in April 76. Gacy buried him under the dining room with a section of cloth lodged in his throat. 5 weeks later, on the afternoon of May 14, 15-year-old Randall Reffett disappeared shortly after returning to his uptown home from a dental appointment. He was last seen by his grandmother later that afternoon. Hours after Reffett was last seen by his family, 14-year-old Samuel Stapleton vanished as he walked home from his sister's apartment. He and Reffett were close acquaintances and both were buried together in the crawl space. And investigators believe that they were murdered the same evening. So, again, I don't have any more detail as to whether or not, because the Gacy hasn't come out and said, look, I did it together or whatever. There's no information on this particular one. But they were friends and they were buried together, so every indication would be that was the case.
And so remember we were talking about the people who made 100 calls over 3 years. These two sound like they have immediate family
grandmother
around them.
Yep.
Did any of them, do you know, make calls, or did they just not even know that John Wayne Gacy existed?
I think for these pair, they didn't know because he didn't have that connection through the building company. I think these were just young boys. So you sort of have the ones who are going through town. You have the ones that he's found on a street corner or picked up somehow. And then there are the ones that are connected to the business somehow, whether it be through getting a job or whatever else. And somebody was aware, like they said, I know that he was going to have an interview about a contract. So that does come into play in a number, but not in this case. That comes to bear in some of the other ones though.
Yeah. Picked a happy one there.
Sorry guys. I know.
It's all right. Yeah. All right.
Jesus.
So what I'll do now is there are a number of other murders that are not dissimilar to that where he's just picked up people and whether he suffocated them, strangled them, they've all pretty much gone into the crawl space. But it gets a little bit more interesting again when...
That crawl space it's
massive.
You have to stop being able to crawl in there at some point because it's just chockers with graves. Like, fuck, it's a squirm space maybe? And how the fuck you dig a hole? Well, is he part wombat? Maybe that's what it is, and he can just burrow because something's fucking not right. I mean, there's a whole lot that's not right, but I just don't get how he dig holes under concrete and in crawl spaces, and I struggle to dig a freaking hole in the garden to plant a tree.
I think what I'm about to say is possibly one of the most insensitive things I've ever said. I'm now going to jump ahead 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 murders, and I'm going on to the 6th because I mean, how awful is that?
It's okay. I understand.
Do you remember we used to count? There was a thing, I don't know if it was primary school or high school. You go
1, 2, skip a few, 99, 100.
I don't know that, but it's very cute. That's exactly what this is. What
I feel like you just did that.
I've never heard that until today. It's very apt. Oh, that's brilliant. God. And I'm going to jump through. So, for everybody else that he murdered in 1976, I'm jumping through to 1977 now. January, though.
In that timey-wimey machine that you have?
Correct. On January 20, 1977, Gacy lured 19-year-old John Sick to his house on the pretext of buying his Plymouth Satellite, a car. He later confessed to strangling Sick in his spare bedroom, claiming Rossi, who is a guy that worked for him at PDM, was asleep in the house the following morning. Gacy later sold the car to Rossi for $300. And that becomes important. 2 months later, on March 15, a 20-year-old Michigan native named John Prestige disappeared. Prestige was last seen leaving a near North Star restaurant. He was buried in the crawl space above the body of Francis Alexander. I haven't even mentioned him. He's obviously one of the others. Shortly before his disappearance, Prestige had mentioned he had obtained work with a local contractor. Gacy murdered one additional unidentified youth and buried him in the crawl space in the spring or early summer of 1977. The exact time of this murder is unknown. On July 5, Gacy killed a 19-year-old from Crystal Lake, Matthew Bowman. Bowman's mother last saw him at a suburban train station. He had intended to travel to Harwood Heights for a scheduled court appointment regarding an unpaid parking ticket. So he's just on a roll now. The following month, Rossi was the employee at PDM,
Who bought the
was
car?
arrested for stealing gasoline while driving Sick's car. The gas station attendant noted the license plate and police traced the car to Gacy's house. When questioned, Gacy told officers Sick had sold the car to him in February, saying he needed money to leave town. A check on the VIN confirmed the car had belonged to Sick. The police did not pursue the matter further, although they did inform Sick's mother that her son had sold his car. Imagine how that felt afterwards. Imagine how that felt to be that close, really. Oh, good news. He sold his car so he could get money so he could get out of town. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Fair enough. I guess it's plausible.
Yeah.
But again,
sell
so
it to?
close. They're there again. I mean, he must have dealt with the police constantly by the sounds of things. Oh, yeah, sure, I've got an answer for that too.
I've just had a horrible realization. So a long time ago, I saw a movie with Brian. Is it Brian Dennehy?
Yeah.
D-E-N-N-E-H-Y.
It's him.
And it's called To Catch a Killer.
That's it.
And he's a clown and he tortures boys, whatever. I've just Googled it. And it is actually, he's playing John Wayne Gacy.
Correct.
I never ever knew that.
Correct.
But I remember ever since then, every time I saw Brian Dennehy in any kind of movie, I'm like, you're that fucking dirty bloke from that movie. And
what I would like you to refer
I just
to,
judged him completely.
I think it's important to note
What's that?
I think it's always important to classify it as a made-for-TV film, because when films and documentaries, it's the number one. The made-for-TV film To Catch a Killer, starring Brian Dennehy as Gacy, was released in 1992. The film is based largely on the investigation of Gacy following the disappearance of Robert Peace by Des Plaines police and their efforts to arrest him before the scheduled civil suit hearing on December 22. So yes, that's what you've seen. That's it.
I
TV.
I didn't know the name of the movie, and I didn't know. Like I always remember seeing Brian Dennehy and just going, "You're that dirty bloke," but I couldn't actually put a finger on it. But all of this just made me go, "Fuck, what's that movie?"
I've had a revelation. That's him.
That is disturbing too.
Yeah, I have the same reaction to John Jarrett because of Wolf Creek.
I haven't
Silence.
seen Wolf.
Oh, don't.
That's Australian.
Yeah, no, that's why I haven't.
Don't. Trust me. Allow only one of us to
Yes.
be scarred forever.
Is that Australian?
Film. Yes.
Okay.
Is it real?
You can carry that burden.
No, it's not real, but I think it's loosely based on some of the Ivan Milat murders.
Yeah.
Oh dear God.
Yeah, so
That's what I
it's
thought.
really, really awful and disturbing. But John Jarrett's a nice actor. But same thing. Every time I see him now, I'm like, oh, he's the killer in John Jarrett in Wolf Creek.
Yeah.
And
Ivan Milat.
Wolf Creek.
Anyway, that's for another time.
Yeah.
That is for another time.
Yeah.
I went to uni in Canberra, and I used to travel from the Gong to Canberra, like through the Southern Highlands.
Through the Langlo State Park. Yeah.
Oh my God. You know, there was a lot of, not a particularly pleasant time.
Speed humps.
You wouldn't want to be breaking down or going through the dark. That was
second most insensitive thing to be said on this podcast today.
I'm sure I've got many more.
But not number one. So I'm going okay. It'll come. The more wine I have.
All right, Carly, you're okay. You look like you're having a little mental breakdown.
I am, because there's just so many people who've been murdered. It's sort of like I feel bad because I'm sort of picking and choosing. But, I think I know who I'd like to talk to about to you next. But if you'd like to take a break.
No, I'm okay. It's up to you guys.
No. But maybe at the end we can somehow edit in the names of all the people who killed just so that we're giving some level of respect to them.
I totally agree with that. It's just... It's horrendous. I think
Never
that's a
let
good
them
idea.
be forgotten, but what a fuck.
Unbelievable.
Continue.
By the end of 1977, it is known Gacy had murdered 6 more young men between the ages of 16 and 21.
So hang on a sec. So one in 72, one in 74, then 75 to 77. That's like another 15 or something.
Oh, yeah. Then he really starts to amp it up. That's so much going on.
So much
to
effort,
conceal.
so
much to dispose of. So much to be able to deal with the flesh and the rotting and the decomposition, so it doesn't totally stink the whole place out. How is it possible that this happened? Let's assume it was very cold in Chicago when he did a lot of them in December, but I mean, it's not like he's not working through the summer months. June, August.
I feel like I work
insane,
a lot and I mow lawns a lot and I drink wine a lot. Like
this is
but
the definition
none
of
of
busy.
that needs clean up and hiding and like, oh, fuck. That, oh, no words.
I
And
know.
none of it
It's
involves
how do you find that time?
seepage.
Leakage, I think.
I
is
know,
the
but I
term.
like seepage.
Gargulation or something.
Yeah, I thought we said we weren't going to use that word anymore.
There's some words you can't unhear that are always going to conjure up horrible images in your mind. And by some words, that's the only one I can think of at the moment.
I don't know. I always think of that lady's stuffing. I know it's not a
Panties.
single word, but that man's penis in a mouth, the Japanese bird.
Sada Abe.
That'd be it.
Eat a bag of dicks.
Battered sav.
I know. If there should just be one battered salve. That is something that will live with me forever as well. But anyway, gargulations it is.
For anyone who's just joined the podcast, go back and listen to Battered Sav for that.
Yes, please do. In very late 1977, on December 30th, Gacy abducted a 19-year-old student, Robert Donnelly, from a Chicago bus stop at gunpoint. Gacy drove him to his home.
What? That's an escalation.
Massive escalation.
Gacy drove him to his home where he raped, tortured and repeatedly dunked Donnelly's head into a bathtub until he passed out. Gacy taunted him with statements such as, "Aren't we playing fun games tonight?" Imagine saying that. This comes from him. Donnelly later testified at Gacy's trial that he was in such pain that he asked Gacy to kill him. Gacy replied, "I'm getting around to it." After several hours...
Hang on, so he didn't kill him?
Gacy drove Donnelly to his workplace and released him, warning him that if he complained to police, they would not believe him.
Well, no one else. The police hadn't believed anyone else.
Confident.
Where do people get those balls? Like to go, I'm going to do all of that and then I'm going to release you. Like,
especially when you've already killed, what did we say? So we've done 9, 12, 21, 22, 3, 4.
Maybe that was the point. You know, I've
still
killed all these other people. Now it's like, how much farther can I take it?
Yeah, that's what you're saying. It was actually harder to not kill him for him in this respect, because going out it'd be more risky that he would get dobbed in. So
yeah, maybe he gets more satisfaction out of having someone alive and suffering rather than killing them and not seeing them suffer.
Maybe not, but he did on this occasion.
Like, imagine what it would take to think you'd get away with that. Like, fuck.
Donnelly reported the assault. So now we've jumped into 1978.
Oh no, to the defective detective?
Donnelly reported the assault and police questioned Gacy on January 6, 1978. Gacy admitted to having a slave sex relationship with Donnelly, but insisted everything was consensual, adding that he didn't pay the kid the money he had promised him. The police believed him and filed no charges.
Oh, what the fuck? Is this the same police department where the 100 calls had been made and
raped,
living in the
tortured,
same
and repeatedly
place?
Dunked his head in a bathtub, and that's when he said, "Oh well, it's a sex-slave relationship, and they've got all right. Sorry for bothering you again. We'll see you later."
No, but is it the same police department where other people had complained about him, or is it?
I don't know the answer to that.
In a different town, and okay, right.
I don't know how it was.
Because that's where you get that cumulative effect.
You would think
just
so,
go,
but
I don't care.
It's still
what
all
he
happening in
says.
Chicago. Des Plaines.
Yeah, right.
So I think the answer to that is probably yes. And if it's not, I mean, I don't know how connected the systems were, but I mean, I can't imagine it would be totally disconnected. Well, I'm sure they're in the same area.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same suburb thing, but
Yeah, it's not days of the
it's
internet.
Not,
but
it's not working, whatever it is.
I wonder if he's... I might just ring around and see what everyone else tells me about this bloke.
What Yelp review he gets.
The following
exactly
month,
right.
How many stars on Facebook or?
So in Feb of 1978, Gacy killed 19-year-old William Kindred, who disappeared on February 16 after telling his fiancée, who knew Gacy, that he was to spend the evening in a bar. Kindred was the final victim Gacy buried in his crawl space because it was full.
Because he couldn't fit any more
Couldn't
in.
get any more in.
Oh,
could you imagine your
we saw that coming, didn't we?
The entire
Underneath
footprint of your house is
full of bodies.
chock-a-block.
That is revolting.
I saw the best quote, and I can't find it, but he said something in prison later on that said something to the likes of, basically, you should have paid me for running a cemetery.
Oh,
Oh.
What a sicko. I'll need to find that. I just cannot find where it was, but maybe I heard it. Maybe I heard it on one of the documentaries, but it was like, oh, you are something else, buddy.
What
that
a
is just
cocky arsehole. Not one of those people should have been dead if he hadn't killed them.
So on March 21, Gacy lured 26-year-old Jeffrey Rignall into his car. Shortly after Rignall entered the car, Gacy chloroformed him and drove him to his house, where his arms and head were restrained in a pillory device affixed to the ceiling and his feet locked into another device. Do you see that kind of stuff in people's houses? I don't know. I guess you do.
It depends on the people.
I feel like chloroform's dropped off the end of the earth. Like, that used to be around in movies and stuff quite a lot in the 80s, I think. Maybe the early 90s. But I haven't seen anything with chloroform in it for a long time.
I moved on to date drugs. Well, you can get your hands on roofies and stuff, if you want to immobilise someone at the bar.
Yes.
There was always those things about someone getting a cloth and putting it over someone's mouth till they passed out.
Yep, that's what he's doing here.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start a campaign to bring back chloroform.
You can kill people if you're not careful with chloroform. You can overdose them and kill them.
Oh,
just to let you know
heads up.
I'm not even going to ask how you know that, because then I'll be an accessory to whatever you've done. I'm just going to go.
You know, quite dangerous. Yep. Not for
putting
meddling.
It out there.
Yeah, you can find out all kinds of things on the internet, can't you?
You want to bring it back, and that's fine. But I'm just telling you, be careful.
Right. So, Paul.
There's reasons you gave it away in the first place.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Gacy explained to Rignall he had complete control over him, and what he intended to do. I don't want to know. What he intended to do, whatever he wanted to do to him, when he wanted and how he wanted. He then raped and tortured Rignall with various instruments, including lit candles and whips, and repeatedly chloroformed him into unconsciousness. Gacy then drove Rignall to Chicago's Lincoln Park, where he was dumped unconscious but alive. Rignall managed to stagger to his girlfriend's apartment.
What?
Police were informed of the assault but did not investigate Gacy. Rignall, because they didn't know, because he didn't know who he was. Rignall was able to recall through the haze of that night the Oldsmobile, he knew his car, the Kennedy Expressway, and particular side streets. He and two friends staked out the Cumberland exit of the expressway, and in April, Rignall saw the Oldsmobile, which he and his friends followed to 8213 West Summerdale.
So they did the work of the police.
Police obtained an arrest warrant, and Gacy was arrested on July 15. He faced trial for battery against Rignall.
Battery. What does that even mean? Like a battery hen?
No.
He beats
him up.
Because I dare say Rignall probably didn't tell every day it happened.
Not rape.
Because I don't think people tell people. I think that people are so ashamed that they've got themselves into this situation that another man has done this to them, that they just go what's the light version of this?
The
PV. What's after the PG version? It's just terrible.
I feel like if you go, because I think we've seen that too with women, where if you get, like, it's just people, right? If you get treated badly, you don't want to report it or you want to do something. But I think if he does then go and report it, I'd like to think that he's being fairly upfront about the whole thing. And battery, like, what the fuck? Because if he did all of that to any of us, if you went and reported it, you'd actually want him to go away for
I would assume he'd be,
what he did, not for some
I mean, if that crime, if
misdemeanor.
that was reported as a crime on the news tonight, you would assume that the person, if they were found and, or had been found and went to trial, would be doing some serious time. But anyway,
some
so
serious
this is July 15 of 78. 78, right? By 78, the crawl space, as I said, had no room for further bodies. Gacy later confessed to
Blech.
police that he considered stowing bodies in the attic initially, but he'd been worried about the complications arising
But
from
they stunk.
leakage.
Dead
The
possums.
stench.
Leakage.
The possum effect.
Oh.
Leakage.
A leakage.
Leakage.
Oh,
Therefore, he
God.
chose to dispose of the bodies off the I-55 bridge into the Des Plaines River. Gacy stated he'd thrown
Oh,
5 bodies
makes
into
sense.
the river in 78.
Oh.
However, one of which...
How many were found?
4. Because one of which he believed had landed on a passing barge, which would account for the 5th. So he was right.
Oh.
Oh, goodness
So this is
groceries.
what-
And no one reported that?
Well, in different...
Maybe they thought it was a suicide.
Maybe they didn't know that it was a
Yeah, go
garbage.
on,
Who
go on.
knows? Maybe they never saw it. We don't know.
Oh.
So
Yeah. Okay.
we don't know. It's gone down river, gone.
Oh.
Goodness me.
So, but
Okay.
this is this thing where without the context of John Wayne Gacy telling them all this as well. Oh my
They wouldn't
God.
know,
I mean,
yeah.
this is what he's
They
told
wouldn't know.
them.
Nobody knew.
And there's a guy that I've seen interviewed, and he claims, and he said, look, there were lots of things that he said that I don't believe, and there were lies and whatever else. He said, but sometimes I
Yeah.
believe that he was telling the truth. And there was one point where he said he thought there were about 45 bodies, and the other guy said, well, you know, he said, it's not my job to work that out. You have to go and find them. But he said, I believe that there are 45 plus. He does think that there are more. And I mean, he's on such a roll. I mean, whether there's more, it's totally plausible, isn't it, really? These are just the ones they've found.
Yeah. If he could do 12 in a year, he could do 15. You know?
Yes.
God.
So the first victim thrown over the I-55 bridge was a 20-year-old. He was murdered in mid-June after, leaving his apartment to purchase cigarettes, so just picked up. And again, same. The last person was.
What you said, it just picked up. Like, how do you just pick up people? It can't
Entice
be easy,
them.
can it?
I think probably, well, I don't know that all these boys was homosexual, but they might have been experimenting. And at the time, it was the 70s and...
He said a lot of people did stuff for money. He would say to me, and they didn't see themselves as
just,
gay. They'd
I'll
like, give you a bit
$20
of blowjob.
to
Yeah,
blow me
that
off.
happened a lot.
Yeah.
But he was often using, he was
Yeah,
still
right,
using the contractor thing to meet people. So, like, if he ran into somebody, he'd be like, oh, mate, I've got a business. Do you want to, what's
Got
some work?
for you.
Yeah. And a number of people come out later, sisters, siblings, friends, whatever else. And there were quite a few connections that people had heard the person who ended up being murdered say that they were in construction, or there was a lead, or there was something. And it's usually that he was going to meet with them, but he might pick them
Get
up
him a
on a
job,
corner.
or,
Do you know what I mean? They might be going to meet him. So he hadn't said, I'm going to meet with John Wayne Gacy, who owns PDM Constructions. But they weren't able to put the picture together. But they were like, oh, actually, he had mentioned something like that. So that was, as you said, it wasn't all people out, looking to have sex. It wasn't all about cruising. A lot of it, there was this mixture where he was able to use sex for the people that would be a motivating factor for, money for the people who were motivated by money, or whether it be work and money combined, or whatever it was. And a lot of the situations there were people who were adamant, not interested, but there were other people who were quite fluid and money's money, blowjob's a blowjob,
okay.
whatever.
He must be very good at reading people. Like, it's I guess there's just this, again, that thing about there's something about him that he must be very good at understanding people's motivations very quickly and acting on them and having them trust him. You go out to get cigarettes and you end up going
home with some rando person and getting murdered.
Yeah.
But it's like when he was doing the JC's thing, and when Carla spoke in the last episode, where he introduces porn and swinging, and everyone's okay with it. Like, there is something about this guy that people just say, yeah, all right, I'll go along with that. It's just bizarre.
Cray.
I listened to another podcast called Australian True Crime with Michelle Laurie and Emily Webb, and they always talk about the fact that monsters don't look like monsters. If they did, they wouldn't be able to do anything.
Yes.
And so, there's clearly something about him that you just wouldn't suspect he is going to do what he's going to do. And therefore you're comfortable getting in his car or going to his house or
Absolutely.
putting the handcuffs on or whatever that is. But fuck.
100%. I had an ex-colleague who
murdered 33 people. Sorry, that's not even remotely funny. Sorry, Dave. Oh, darling.
In the next life.
Well, actually, I did have an ex-colleague who murdered someone when I was in the UK.
Whoa.
But I didn't know this person directly. So they were working in the same organisation
that
as me.
escalated quickly.
In the same building as me at the same time as I was there, but I didn't know them personally. And it was around the time, Carla, I went back to Australia. And this woman went
Understandably.
missing.
She had to get out of town. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this woman went missing, and I remember the police coming and dredging.
I buried her in the crawl space.
No, they were dredging the ponds around our building.
Really?
Because they thought that they may have found bits of this lady there, and they didn't find her there, but they did find parts of her in various other places. And it turned out that this person who was working at the same place as me was her lodger, and he and another mate had, for whatever reason, decided to kill her and cut her up and claim her pension.
Oh.
So your point is right, which is you don't expect a monster to be having their, eggs and bacon in the same cafeteria as you are sitting in, but it happens. It strikes me that your old mate, as we like to call him, J. Gacy.
Yeah.
Maybe he was trying to put a one-man tribute band together of the Village People, only he didn't have a cowboy outfit or a American Indian chief or whatever that other guy is. Because remember construction worker, policeman. So, because remember you told us last time that he actually posed as a policeman in some of his ways of getting people into the car and getting them home.
Indeed.
So that's two of them down. And then he said, I tell you what, I haven't got the other costumes, but I'll just have some shit clown outfits. I'll do patches and I'll do, what was his other one?
Pogo.
Pope, yeah.
Not Popo. Popo's the police, by mistake. The Popo.
So I thought maybe he was doing a Village People thing.
Maybe. He was certainly...
Village People, just in my world, are way better than J. Gacy.
Totally. Yeah.
If he did try to do that, he did a shit job of it.
I agree.
Would this be inappropriate to bring in the fact that I also really liked You Can't Stop the Music, the album, and I used to really like I Love You to Death. I Love You to Death. It's such a shit song. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? No.
No.
Do you know the? Do you know the movie? And what's his name? Bruce Jenner was in it.
I know the movie.
You can't stop the music. Yeah, I'm sure the Village People movie. My mum took me to see it. It was big.
Oh, I know
the album.
Yeah, no, I do.
Did you have the album?
No.
I do remember in the 70s driving along in Elizabeth Coop's parents' Volkswagen, like a little V-dub Beetle, and that song coming on the radio, and they're going, "You can't stop the music. Nobody can stop the music." And he goes, "Oh, yes, I can," and just turns the radio off.
Dad joke. Oh God.
100% nailed it.
Well, my anecdote for You Can't Stop the Music, Carla, is that because I was a year younger than you.
Yeah, it's 1980.
It was 1980.
Yeah.
My mother went to the pictures with my two sisters and brother and me, and apparently at the Village Cinema, wherever that was being shown, they had an age limit for You Can't Stop the Music. It was, I don't know, PG or something. And so I wasn't allowed to go. But instead of seeing the Village People, You Can't Stop the Music, my mother took me into the film she went to see, which was Breaker Morant. So
I don't know. I don't remember dancing to the soundtrack of Breaker Morant.
And I was in grade 1. I would have been in grade 1 or prep. And I remember the teacher coming up to me and she said, "Did you have a nice weekend?" I said, "Oh, yes, miss. My mum took me to see Breaker Morant because I wasn't allowed to go to the Village People." And she said, oh, because it's about the blokes who were executed in the Boer War or something. I can't remember. Thing of the Light Brigade, whatever it is. I mean, I was only about 5 or 6. And but I remember saying to the teacher, "Oh, yes." And the man said, "Shoot straight, you bastards. Don't make a bloody mess of it."
That would so be you. Oh, we're going to use the word bastards.
And the teacher went, "Oh, that's interesting,"
Yeah.
and then looked at my sister horrified and walked away. Yes, anyway. I digress.
Oh, my God. I
So,
digress.
Where are we?
We're not on I Can't Stop the Music. We're on the murder.
I can't stop the killing.
No. Nobody.
You can't stop the killing. Nobody
The police can't even
can.
stop the
Anyway.
Nobody can. But this
Correct.
Or
chatty...
the neighbour. You can't stop
screaming.
screaming.
Nobody
Nobody can
stop
stop
the
the screaming.
Stop the screaming.
Oh, that's so
Oh,
bad.
my goodness.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
We only laugh because we're so horrified.
Oh.
It's just a coping mechanism.
I was
Anyway,
thinking that there hadn't
go
been
on.
much sort of being able to let loose
There
enough.
hasn't been much laugh. Yes.
Things start to turn a corner now, though. So this is we're not going to keep.
For the better or the worse?
Well, slightly
Hopefully
worse
for
for
the
us
better.
for a period of time, and then
Oh.
things are starting to unravel a bit. For
I feel like I just got a nut punch.
Yeah.
Okay. Go
Okay.
on.
So on the afternoon of December 11, 1978, Gacy visited the Nyson pharmacy in Des Plaines to discuss a potential remodelling deal with the store owner, Phil Torf. While he was within earshot of 15-year-old part-time employee, Robert Peast, Gacy mentioned his firm often hired teenage boys at a starting wage of $5 per hour, which was almost double the pay he was receiving at the pharmacy. Shortly after Gacy left the pharmacy, Peast's mother arrived at the store to drive her son home so the family could celebrate her birthday together. Peast asked his mother to wait, adding that some contractor wants to talk to me about a job. He left the store at 9 p.m, promising to return shortly. Peast was murdered shortly after 10 p.m. at Gacy's home. Gacy later stated...
Jeez, he doesn't take long, does he? Like he just gets them and
Where
kills
was the
them.
mum?
We'll get to that.
At home.
She was waiting for him.
Back at the shop.
Just still waiting for him.
Back at the pharmacy.
Gacy later stated that at his house he asked Peast whether there was anything he wouldn't do for the right price, to which Peast replied that he did not mind working hard. In response, Gacy stated good money could be earned by hustling, although Peast was dismissive. Gacy then duped Peast into donning handcuffs before saying, "I'm going to rape you and you can't do anything about it," as Peast began weeping. He also stated that as he placed the rope around Peast's neck, the boy was crying, scared. Gacy admitted to having received a phone call from a business acquaintance as Peast lay dying, suffocating on the bedroom floor. Now, if that man is not vile enough, that is just some innocent kid, like really wrong place, wrong time. That is just fucking horrendous, isn't it? That is all bad.
So from a police perspective, the mum has gone to pick him up. He said, just hang on because there was a contractor here earlier who's going to come back and talk to me about a job.
I can tell you what happens.
He's then somehow ended up... Well, I guess what I'm trying to work out is how do they not connect those
They
dots?
do.
If
They do.
Oh,
This is
okay.
the first time
This
dots
is the
start
This
to
is
get
the-
connected, finally.
Fucking thank
When
God.
Peast failed to return, his family filed a missing persons report with the Des Plaines police. Torf named Gacy as the contractor Peast had most likely left the store to talk to about a job. Lieutenant Joseph Kozenskak, whose son attended Maine West High School like Peast, chose to investigate Gacy further. Having spoken with Peast's mother on the morning of December 12th, Kozenczak, I can't even say that, Kozenczak, I think it is, Kozenczak became convinced Peast had not run...
Cousin, just call him Cousin Zach.
Kozenczak.
Yeah.
It's okay, he's not a victim.
Yeah,
Kozenczak
Cousin Zach.
became convinced, it really does look like that actually, Peast had not run away from home. A routine check of Gacy's criminal background revealed that he had an outstanding battery charge against him, we know that one, in Chicago, and
Yep.
had served a prison sentence in Iowa for the sodomy of the 15-year-old boy. That was 10 years earlier.
Wow, he's good. He's like the best. Cousin Zach's like the best thing to happen to Des Plaines police in
10 years.
Forever.
8 years.
Cousin Zach?
That was interesting
Oh,
though,
sorry.
because didn't they say about his crime in Iowa that the It was sealed. The record was sealed?
Yes, there was something that was expunged. There was some.
No, it wasn't expunged. It was sealed.
Yeah,
the record was
because
sealed.
yeah, you're right.
So that's interesting you found that out. Okay.
Because it hadn't come up before until this, but I don't know why it comes up now. Cousin Zach and two Des Plaines office. I hate calling it Des Plaines because it looks like it's French, but you don't pronounce it French. It's not Des Plaines. It's Des Plaines, and when they say it's Des Plaines, it looks like I'm joking. Cousin Zach and Des Plaines.
It sounds like some poor bloke named Des who is super plain.
But I'm sure people listening to me go, I'm saying someone's name that is Polish and I'm calling them Cousin Zach and two Des Plaines police officers. I couldn't sound like I'm more Aussie bogan if I tried. But I promise you Des Plaines is how they say it. Cousin Zach and two.
But you are nailing
totally
it, so
it.
Continue.
It's bogan hour with Swanny.
Yeah. But it's like what's it called? There's a Blampede. That should be pronounced. Blampede is a town in Victoria.
Right.
It should be pronounced Blompier.
All right. Oh.
They call it Blampede. So you're right.
Des Plaines.
Yeah, so
Not Des Plaines.
So Carla, whilst you might be concerned about the way you're pronouncing things, I feel like you could be saying Des Plaines and Cousin Zach. You're not that Aussie
I feel like I am.
It
sounds like it to my ear.
It's Cardenay Shunt.
It's a very affluent place.
It is a very affluent place. So Cousin Zach and the two
Yes.
Des Plaines police officers visited Gacy at his home the following evening. Gacy indicated he had seen two youths working at the pharmacy and that he had asked one of them, whom he believed to be Peast, whether there was any remodelling materials behind the store. He was adamant, however, that he had not offered Peast a job and he had only returned to the pharmacy shortly after 8 p.m. as he had left his appointment book at the store. Gacy promised to come to the station later. I don't quite understand that. I'll get to you later. I'll come to that evening to make a statement confirming this, indicating he was unable to do so at that moment as his uncle had just died. When questioned as to how soon he could come to the police station, I've never seen that before, he responded, "You guys are very rude. Don't you have any respect for the dead?"
Who are buried in my crawl space.
Yeah.
At 3:20 a.m., he does keep late hours, Gacy arrived at the police station covered in mud, claiming he'd been involved in a car accident. On returning to the police station later that day, Gacy denied any involvement in Peace's disappearance and repeated that he had not offered him a job. When asked why he had returned to the pharmacy, Gacy reiterated that he had done so in response to a phone call from Torf, informing him he'd left his appointment book at the store. Detectives had already spoken with Torf. This is the one bit of great investigative journalism, who denied calling Gacy. I haven't got that wrong. God, I'm a dick. At the request of detectives, Gacy prepared a written statement detailing his movements on December 11. At this point, does that feel a bit odd to you? It's like they're being very polite with him. It's like, would you mind coming to the police station? Could you possibly prepare a statement detailing your movements?
Yeah.
Does that feel a bit off to you? I don't know why it does to me.
It all is weird. So I'm still confused about how the mum went to pick him up and he said, "Hang on, I've just got to do blah, blah, blah."
Just go to this meeting with this guy. Yeah. Never come back.
Never came home. And there's a lot of people around this particular bit that would point to, you know what, we're not going to take you at your word. We're actually going to...
and I think that's what I'm...
do this on our terms, not yours.
That's why it feels
straight
slow.
round to the house.
Yeah. So first search warrant.
Got a warrant.
Correct. So they've done that.
Got a warrant. Straight in. Searched the house. Arrested him.
They did get a warrant, did they?
Yes. Suspecting Gacy.
And they went
but
to
I'm
go
just
in.
looking
They
at the
thought
dates.
they'd look in the crawl space but couldn't get in because it was full.
No, they weren't down there. So December 11 is the day goes on December 13. So suspecting Gacy might be holding Peace against his will at his home, Des Plaines police obtained a warrant to search Gacy's house on December 13. This search of Gacy's property revealed several suspicious items, including several police badges and a 6mm Brevetta I don't know how to say that. I would have thought Brevitata. A starter pistol inside an office drawer.
Egg frittata.
No, pronounce it incorrect. It's a brand name. And a syringe and hypodermic needle inside a cabinet in Gacy's bathroom. Investigators also found handcuffs, several books on homosexuality and pederasty. Does anyone know what that is?
Pederasty.
Pederasty.
Sounds like something.
I was supposed to look it up before
Let's
and
Google
I
it.
forgot.
It's a Greek form of interaction in which members of the same sex would partake in the pleasures of intellectual and or sexual relationship as part of a socially acceptable ancient custom.
Pederasty is an ancient Greek form of interaction.
That's what I just said.
I missed the beginning. I'm just reading it.
Older male and younger male, but male usually in his teens. Characteristic of the archaic and classical periods. It's
pedophilia.
Sexual relationship of an old man with a young boy. That's right.
Between an adult
Pederasty
and a pubescent.
No, but they said intellectual.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I see. So it's used. It says here.
That's bizarre.
As a historical practice.
Yes, but
in most countries today, such relationships are illegal. Oh God.
Yeah, it's pedophilia.
Funny that.
Pedophilia.
Right. Modern view.
Yeah.
In the modern world, an adult engaging in sexual activity with a minor may be considered child sexual abuse or statutory rape. There you go.
Pedophile.
So there you go. I've never heard that word before. They also found 7 pornographic films, capsules of amyl nitrate, and an 18-inch, 46 centimetre dildo in Gacy's bedroom.
Oh, that's got a smart.
Great word.
Oh,
Great word.
48 inch.
18
46
inch.
centimetre.
I don't know.
Ouchies.
I don't know where that's going, but Schmitty, I'm pretty sure God
definitely half
didn't
a
create
metre.
orifices for that.
It's not going anywhere near any of my holes. Anyway. Ouch.
But the next one's like
As
a
you were.
39-inch, 99 centimetre. I'm thinking, where's he going with this? But it was a 2x4 with 2 holes drilled into each end, thankfully.
39 inches?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Right. Sorry.
Motherfucker.
Bottles of Valium. And interestingly, several driver's licenses were found in the northwest bedroom. A blue hooded parka was found atop a toolbox inside the laundry room. An underwear too small to fit Gacy was located inside a bathroom closet. In the northwest bedroom, investigators found a class of 1975 Maine West High School ring engraved with the initials JAS. They also recovered a Neeson Pharmacy photo receipt from a trash can alongside 36-inch section of nylon rope. Now, what I find interesting, at this point, they go to surveillance. Do you know, I find that, anyway.
And the place didn't smell?
No, but I think if you were in that, they're probably going, there's something really, really serious going on here. And
but all of that's circumstantial.
Whilst we've collected all of this, none of it's definitive.
It's not
so
helping.
I could understand
Peace?
that because
he's still missing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
It's an interesting question about what you could do because, to your point, if there's no smoking gun or body, no body parts found, everything looks a bit sus, but
where are we going with it all?
There's nothing definitive.
Regina Lawless would get him off at this point.
I wonder what... she would.
Do that.
The Des Plaines police confiscated Gacy's Oldsmobile and other PDM work vehicles. Police assigned 2-man surveillance teams to monitor Gacy on a rotational 12-hour basis as they continued their investigation into his background and potential involvement in Peace's disappearance. These surveillance
I wish
teams...
they had have knocked on the neighbour's door who said that there was screaming going on between 3 and 6.
Yeah, that would have been helpful.
Would have helped speed the process up, wouldn't it? Anyway, or even just taking a call and remember she said she tried to report it.
Yeah.
God, there's a lot of weird ass shit going on, isn't there?
The following day, so at this point,
get off the gunge, 70s.
So at this point, there's 4 people, 2 sets watching him constantly.
It is still pre-computers, so I think as much as we're shitting on him a bit, the record keeping would have been difficult to put all that together, whereas in the world now, if you've got a database on, pinging this man quite constantly, you're more inclined to pick him up.
There's also a lot of drugs in the 70s, isn't there? So,
there was,
I would, but I've just got to finish my doobie before I go over there and investigate.
Got to roll this spliff.
I hope it's not laced with something synthetic so you get the shits and have to go into a high school to go to the bathroom and put a remote control in the toilet.
Yes, and eat a Betty
frosting.
Crocker cake.
Don't be upset.
Yes.
Don't be upset with us. That was your story, Carl.
Stapler in the toilet.
You've been forgotten. That was Floridian frolics. Anyway.
No, I just feel like Carla's face is saying that I'm really traumatized by what I'm about to tell you, and I just need to get it out. So stop interrupting me. It's a little bit like that.
It's sort of it all starts to pick up pace a little bit now. So The following day, so you've got your two sets of surveillance teams, working one shift on, one shift off to keep a constant eye on him. But they receive a phone call from Michael Rossi, and I mentioned him before. He was the one who had worked for...
Bought the car?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, he informs the investigator of Gregory Godzick's disappearance, who was a guy who worked for PDF, and the fact that another PDM employee, Charles Hadler, had been found drowned in the Illinois River earlier that year. So he just put it out there. On December 15, Des Plaines investigators obtained further details of Gacy's battery charge, learning the complainant, remember Jeffrey Rignall? He had reported that Gacy had lured him into his car, then chloroformed, raped and tortured him before dumping him with severe chest and facial burns and rectal bleeding in Lincoln Park the following morning.
You didn't mention
and then in an interview with Gacy's former wife, so the Hoff was contacted.
No, that escalated, didn't it?
Oh, it's made me... I mean, it goes without saying, but when you say those words...
It's not good. Gacy's former wife, they learned of the disappearance of John Butkovic. Don't know why she knew that. And the same day, the West Main High School ring was traced to John Allen Sick. Remember Alan Sick was the car?
Sick, yeah.
And
I was going to say, was that John Sick?
An interview with Sick's mother revealed that several items from her son's apartment were also missing, including a Motorola TV set. Who knew? By December 16, Gacy was becoming affable with the surveillance detectives, regularly inviting them to join him for meals in restaurants and occasionally for drinks in bars or at his home.
Are you kidding?
Oh, he's a
got balls,
Fruit Loop.
Man.
He repeatedly denied he'd had anything to do with Peace's disappearance and accused the officers of harassing him because of his political connections or because of his recreational drug use. Knowing these officers were unlikely to arrest him on anything trivial...
I'm not okay with that.
He taunted them by flouting traffic laws and succeeded in losing his pursuers more than once. Then...
Brian Dennehy.
Poor Brian Dennehy.
He sounds very much like Brian Dennehy, this John Wayne Gacy. Very much.
Sorry, go on.
Very much.
Investigators conducted a formal interview of Rossi on December 17. He informed them Gacy had sold Sick's vehicle to him, explained that he had bought the car from Sick because he needed money to move to California. A further examination of Gacy's Oldsmobile was conducted on this date. In the course of examining the trunk of the car, investigators discovered a small cluster of fibres they suspected to be human hair. That evening, officers conducted a test using 3 trained German Shepherd search dogs to determine whether Peace had been present in any of Gacy's vehicles. One dog approached Gacy's Oldsmobile and lay on the passenger seat in what the dog's handler informed investigators was a death reaction, indicating Peace's body had been present in the vehicle.
I love that dog.
Yeah.
That evening, Gacy invited detectives Albrecht and Huckmeister to a restaurant for a meal. In the early hours of December 18, he invited them into another restaurant where over breakfast, I could imagine having to eat with his man, early breakfast. He must be up all the time.
But you don't have
he talked
to.
His business, his marriages.
No, this is a bit I can't
and
get.
His activities as a registered clown. At one point during the
Might be easier to
conversation,
surveil him if you're actually with him. Yeah.
Gacy remarked, clowns can get away with murder. I've used that line before, but that was where it was actually from. Yeah.
I don't understand. So the police surveilling him don't have to go and eat with him. It almost...
I don't quite understand that either.
No, I don't know whether they were
maybe they were
get more
thinking
info from him,
exactly.
or
that's what I was
whether
thinking.
they just were sick of eating donuts and coffee while they're surveilling him. Oh God, I wouldn't want to get.
It does sound like something out of The Simpsons, doesn't it? Like a scene out of The Simpsons.
It's just not right.
By December 18, Gacy was beginning to show signs of strain from the constant surveillance. He was unshaven, looked tired, appeared anxious, and was drinking heavily. That afternoon, he drove to his lawyer's office to prepare a $750,000
Sounds like COVID.
Civil suit against the Des Plaines Police Department, demanding that they cease their surveillance. The same day, the serial number of the Nyson Pharmacy photo receipt found in Gacy's kitchen was traced to 17-year-old Kimberly Byers, a colleague of Peace at Nyson Pharmacy. Byers admitted when contacted in person the following day that she had worn the jacket on December 11 to shield herself from the cold. She had placed the receipt in the parka pocket just before she gave the coat to Peace as he left the store.
There you go.
Claiming a contractor wanted to speak to him. This statement contradicted Gacy's previous statements that he had no contact with Robert Peace on the evening of December 11. A second search warrant, thank goodness. The same evening, Rossi was interviewed a second time. This time he was even more cooperative. He informed detectives that in the summer of 1977, at Gacy's behest, he had spread 10 bags of lime in the crawl space of Gacy's.
There you go.
On December 19, so this is 8 days since Robert Peace has gone missing, investigators began compiling evidence for a second search warrant for Gacy's house. The same day, Gacy's lawyers filed the civil suit against the Des Plaines Police. The hearing for the suit was scheduled for December 22. That afternoon, Gacy invited the surveillance detective inside his house again. As Officer Robinson distracted Gacy with conversation, Officer Schultz walked into Gacy's bedroom in an unsuccessful attempt to track down the serial number of the Motorola TV set they suspected belonged to John Sick. While flushing Gacy's toilet, the officer noticed a smell he suspected could be that of rotting corpses emanating from the heating duct.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
3, 2, 1, you're back in the room.
From the
The
duct.
officers who had searched Gacy's house previously had failed to notice this, as the house had been cold.
Right, because you didn't have the heating on.
Yeah. Because it would be very cold in Chicago, I presume.
Yeah.
What time of year was it?
December.
Right, yeah.
It's freezing.
freezing,
Yeah, freezing cold.
That would hide it. I must say, though, they're very quick to respond, aren't they? Like, we're talking 8 days, and they've learnt a lot in a very short period of time that, we all now know.
Tell him if he doesn't behave himself, he's going in the crawl space, Carla.
With a bag of lime.
Could you say, get out, get out, leave the dog alone, close the door. That was it. And I was doing with my gritted teeth.
Yeah, you did it very well. What was the
the
teeth joke
that
we
Raj.
had back early on? There was something about
Pavlov's dogs. At the minute she
yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
They just
Mum's
know
teeth.
shit's going to get
I
real.
grit my teeth.
Yeah.
Shit's going to get real.
right.
Investigators interviewed Rossi on December 20. He's the one who said that he had helped with the
lime.
The lime, yeah. Rossi had agreed to be interviewed in relation to his possible links with John Sick, as well as the disappearance of Robert Peace. When questioned by cousin, what did we call him? Cousin Zach. As to where he believed Gacy had concealed Peace's body, Rossi replied Gacy may have placed the body in the crawl space, adding that he thought Sick's car was stolen. On the evening of December 20, so this is, 9 days later, Gacy drove to his lawyer's office in Park Ridge to attend a scheduled meeting, ostensibly to discuss the progress of his civil suit. On his arrival, Gacy appeared dishevelled and immediately asked for an alcoholic drink, whereupon Sam Amarante fetched a bottle of whiskey from his car. On his return, Amarante asked Gacy what he had to discuss with them. Gacy picked up a copy of the Daily Herald from Amarante's desk, pointed to the front page article covering the disappearance of Robert Peace and said, This boy is dead. He's dead. He's in the river. Gacy then proceeded to give a rambling confession that ran into the early hours of the following morning. He began by informing Amarante and Stevens, it's his legal team, he had been the judge, jury, and executioner of many, many people, and that he now wanted to be the same for himself. He said he buried most of his victims in his crawl space, and he had disposed of 5 other bodies in the Des Plaines River. Gacy dismissed his victims as male prostitutes, hustlers, and liars, to whom he gave the rope trick, adding he sometimes awoke to find dead, strangled kids on his floor, with their hands cuffed behind their back. He had buried their bodies in his scroll space as he believed they were his property.
See you next Tuesday.
As a result of the alcohol he had consumed, Gacy fell asleep midway through his confession. Amarante immediately arranged a psychiatric appointment for Gacy at 9 a.m. that morning. On awakening several hours later, Gacy shook his head when informed by Amarante he had confessed to killing approximately 30 people, saying, well, I can't think about this right now. I've got things to do. Ignoring, and for everyone who can't see me, I'm doing quotation, ignoring his lawyer's advice regarding his scheduled appointment, Gacy left their office to attend to the needs of his business.
Wow.
Workaholic.
I don't get this.
The guy's nuts. The guy's insane.
God, yeah.
He's insane, but who's going to stop him? Hey, what? Gacy later recollected his memories of his final day of freedom as being hazy, and he knew his arrest was inevitable and that he had intended to visit his friends and say his final farewells. After leaving his lawyer's office, Gacy drove to a gas station where, in the course of filling his rental car, he handed a small bag of cannabis to the attendant, who immediately handed the bag to the surveillance officers.
Fucking
And
hell.
Gacy had told him,
What?
it's like a fucking comedy, isn't it?
Oh, my Lord.
The end is coming for me. These guys are going to kill me. Gacy then drove to the home of a fellow contractor and a friend, Ronald Rode. Never heard of him before. Gacy hugged Rode before bursting into tears and saying, I've been a bad boy. I killed 30 people, give or take a few.
Or 45, yeah.
Gacy left Rode and drove to Cram's home to meet with Cram and Rossi. Cram was also one of the guys with him. As he drove along the expressway, the surveillance officers noticed he was holding a rosary to his chin, praying while he drove. After talking with Cram and Rossi, Gacy had Cram drive him to the scheduled meeting with lawyer Leroy Stevens on the northwest side. As Gacy spoke with Stevens, Cram informed the surveillance officer that Gacy had told him and Rossi that he had confessed to over 30 murders with his lawyers the previous evening. Gacy then had Cram drive him to Berry Hill Cemetery, where his father was buried. How nice he gets to do all of this to say goodbye to everybody. As Gacy drove to various locations that morning, police outlined the formal draft of their second search warrant, specifically to search for the body, Robert Peast, in the crawl space. On hearing from the surveillance detectives that in light of his erratic behaviour, Gacy might be about to commit suicide, police decided to arrest him on a charge of possession and distribution of cannabis in order to hold him in custody.
I can't believe
As
they
the
didn't
formal
pick him up
request for a
before.
second search warrant was presented. This is where you see the system for what it is and the process that you have to follow, even though you
So
know what's
slow
going
for the
on.
police,
God,
yeah.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It must have been so frustrating for
Oh,
them.
God, could
knowing
you
they had
imagine
to have
how
the
terrifying that
paperwork.
must have been for everyone involved?
Yeah.
At 4:30 p.m. on December 21, the eve of the hearing of Gacy's civil suit, where he'd put the suit against the Display Police Department, Judge Marvin J. Peters granted a request for a second search warrant. After police informed Gacy of their intentions to search his crawl space for the body of Peast, Gacy denied the teenager was buried there, but confessed to having killed in self-defense a young man whose body was buried under his garage. That's one. Armed with a signed search warrant, police and evidence technicians drove to Gacy's home. On their arrival, officers found Gacy had unplugged his sump pump, flooding the crawl space with water. To clear it, they simply replaced the plug and waited for the water to drain. After it had done so, evidence technician Daniel Genty entered the 28 by 38 foot, so 8.5 metre by 11.6 metre crawl space. He crawled to the southwest area and began digging. Within minutes, he had uncovered putrefied flesh and a human arm bone.
That's rotting.
Genty immediately shouted to the investigators they could charge Gacy with murder, adding, I think this place is full of kids. A police photographer then dug in the northeast corner of the crawl space, uncovering a patella. The two then began digging in the southeast corner, uncovering 2 lower leg bones. The victims were too decomposed to be pieced. As the body discovered in the northeast corner was later unearthed, a crime scene technician discovered the skull of a second victim alongside this body. Later excavations of the feet of the second victim revealed a further skull beneath the body. Because of this, technicians returned to the trench where the first body was unearthed, discovering the rib cage of a fourth victim within the crawl space. It's just
One after the other on top
I
of
was
each
starting to
other.
get to confirm the scale of the murders. After being informed that the police had found human remains in his crawl space and that he would now face murder charges, Gacy told officers he wanted to clear the air, adding he had known his arrest was inevitable since the previous evening, which he'd spent on the couch in his lawyer's office. In the early hours of the morning of December 22, and in the presence of his lawyers, Gacy provided a formal statement in which he confessed to murdering approximately 30 young males, all of whom he claimed had entered his house willingly. Some victims were referred to by name, but Gacy claimed not to know or remember most of the names. He claimed all were teenage male runaways or male prostitutes, the majority of whom he had buried in his crawl space.
Were any of them male prostitutes? Like, because he's claiming that.
I don't know where.
But yeah, that's because
No.
you often hear about crimes against female prostitutes.
Sex
Yeah,
workers,
and
of
so
course,
you
yes.
can, like you could kill them and you get away with it because they weren't connected to family and they were easy to isolate. But I feel like he's just throwing these stories in, but none of it's actually true.
Well, some of them could have been, though, because as you said earlier, he was quite happy to offer them money for sex, and some of those kids were quite happy to go along with that.
But-
so not to say that they were street hookers
That
waiting
doesn't
on
make him
every
a prostitute.
corner.
That makes him a victim.
But they were prostituting them. Well, actually, they're all victims, whether they're street hookers or not. But
No, but if they haven't prostituted
take money for sex,
outside
you're a
of that
prostitute.
incident,
That's basically
like they're not
the
walking the
definition.
streets looking for money and sex.
But you don't know. They might have.
What I'm saying is that there's no proof of that,
They
right?
might have been paid for sex before.
No, what I'm saying is there's no proof of that. So
True.
he's saying that, but really he's just a
True.
fucking predator
That
who
was his
is
statement,
using
yeah.
the the
he's
money to lure
100%.
people and then later saying they're prostitutes. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't think they were. And that was never what it was really about. When he's interviewed before he goes to trial and afterwards, he said he tries to pass himself off as having sort of this multiple personality disorder, which they don't believe he does have.
Yeah.
But he gets to that quite quickly when he starts talking about that. And he starts talking about, oh, Jack did that, Jack Handy did that. And he claims that he has this persona. Jack Handy. Jack Hanley. And Jack Hanley...
I was going to say, Jack Handy's the one who writes those funny cartoons.
Jack Handy.
Jerry told me to do it.
And he was saying that Jack told me
to
do it.
It's that again.
And Jack Hanley was this personality of a cop who was, hated homosexuals, whatever else. So he would paint that picture. That's why he was trying to, punish these hustlers and male prostitutes. So it's just, retrofitting what he'd done to, and it's just he thinks that it will help his defense, and that he was acting as some kind of moral champion, as this this cop, this Jack Hanley figure that he manufactures. When he's being arrested, they question him specifically about Peast, and Gacy confessed to luring him to his house and strangling him on the evening of December 11. He also admitted to having slept alongside the body that evening before disposing of
Jesus Christ, there you go.
Hours. Yeah. On his way to the police station, he had been in a minor traffic accident after disposing of Peast. Remember, he turned up in mud?
You said he had, yeah.
His vehicle had slid off an ice-covered road and he had been towed from its location. So he had... So where was the body? Was it in the house still between... Remember he turned up afterwards, like at 3:20 a.m, covered in mud?
Yes.
That must have been after he'd got rid of the body.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Accompanied by police, his lawyers, his older sister, Gacy was driven to the I-55 bridge on December 23 to pinpoint the precise point where he confessed to having thrown the body of Robert Peast and 4 other victims into the Des Plaines River. Gacy was then taken to his house and instructed to mark his garage floor with orange spray paint to show where he had buried the individual he had supposedly killed in self-defense, whom he named as John Butkovich. Remember when the wife and the two daughters had come back and he was struggling to put it under, well, not struggling, I was struggling to think how you'd get it under the concrete plate quickly in the garage. To assist officers in their search for the victims buried beneath his house during the confession, Gacy drew a rough diagram of his basement on a phone message sheet to indicate where the bodies were buried. 26 bodies were unearthed from Gacy's crawl space over the next week. 3 more were also unearthed elsewhere on the property.
I've got no words.
The crawl space was marked in sections and each body, I know. And it's just...
Oh, no, it's just a house of horrors. Yeah.
It really is.
It's horrendous.
They were finding where people had, like my head would be next to your feet and, pulling...
Overlapping kind of thing.
Yeah. And then, to be honest, the next week is basically just a catalogue of them finding body after body after body. How they were positioned, numbering bodies, trying to work out how many more were there. And, there was a blizzard came through, so it had to be stopped. They stopped for Christmas Day. But all the victims discovered at 8213 West Summerdale were in an advanced state of decomposition. Dental records and X-ray charts helped Stein identify the remains. 23 victims were identified via dental records, with 2 further victims identified via skeletal trauma. These identifications were also supported with personal artefacts found in Gacy's home. The head and upper torso of several bodies unearthed beneath Gacy's property had been placed into plastic bags. There you go. Several were also found with the rope still around their necks. In some cases, bodies were found with foreign objects such as prescription bottles lodged in their pelvic region. States concluded 12 victims recovered from Gacy's property died not of strangulation but of asphyxiation, and the house was demolished in April of 1979. So really not that long after.
I'm okay with that, I think. I think that's
work
probably
would have been done. So that would have gone
good
into
thing.
Well, I think it'd be pretty hard to keep it standing because
there would be not much left.
To get in underneath and to excavate that entire area, you'd basically take all its stumps away. And who'd ever want to have anything there again?
House built on infamous lot. A new home was built at the former location of John Wayne Gacy's house.
Yeah.
You don't want to be living on that, do you? That's bad.
Bad karma.
Doo-doo?
It's poltergeist,
Juju? What do they call it? Bad
juju, not doo-doo.
Bad
Juju.
juju.
Bad juju.
Bad juju.
I don't even know what that means, but it's bad juju, whatever it is.
Bad vibes. Anyway,
Right.
bad juju.
That house has got fucking bad juju.
Earlier, I made a comment because he said he was judge, jury, and executioner for these people, and I said, "Oh, that's like us." Only we tend to just send them to a fictional place and not necessarily knock people off, and we don't rape them, and we don't do that. So no, we're not quite as maniacal as our mate Gacy. Well, who are we taking to trial?
Well,
Gacy
I think-
himself. Or...
Well, what I think I'll do, I'll tell you what he got.
What did he got?
The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. I mean, there's a whole host of stuff where they basically tried to present him, of course, as being crazy. He was, not capable of making any decisions. He was mad, but they found that to be not the case. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours and found Gacy guilty of 33 charges of murder. He was also found guilty of sexual assault and taking indecent liberties with a child. Both convictions in reference to Robert Peace.
Indecent liberties with a child.
At the time, his conviction for 33 murders was the most for which any person in US history had been convicted. And this is what we were talking about before, Schmitty. In the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury deliberated for more than 2 hours before sentencing Gacy to death for each murder committed after the Illinois statute on capital punishment came into effect in June 1977. So anything before that,
missed out.
he got a life sentence for. Yeah. So that's why the numbers seem out. I think you do the 12 after and everything else had come before.
So
he was sentenced to death.
The irony of getting a life sentence whilst you're also getting a death sentence. Like, what? We sentence you to life imprisonment for these murders and we sentence you to death for these ones.
Because they're after the...
what? Listen to yourselves.
He did appeal, but the thing is, he was interviewed a number of times. There's a lot you can see where he's, there's so much footage of him talking about what happened, who people were, what he thought. It's quite remarkable. On the morning of May 9th, 1994, Gacy was transferred from the Menard Correctional Centre to the Stateville Correctional Centre, which is where he was going to be executed. That afternoon, he was allowed a private picnic on the prison grounds with his family. For his last meal, Gacy ordered a bucket of KFC, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, fresh strawberries and a Diet Coke, which makes me slightly alarmed because, frankly, that sounds...
A little bit like your trial by wine diet.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's twice KFC's been...
But there was a problem. There was a clogging with the eye... Anyway, cut a very long story short, there was a problem when they went to... inject him. There was a clog or something in the line because they hadn't done it because they weren't practiced executioners, as it were. So as a result of that, they actually had to change the way they would do it going forward so there would never be another, problem with...
Botched job.
Yeah, botched job. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and his last words? Anyone know his last words?
I'm a dirty fuck.
Nope, they were kiss my ass. What a cock.
Seriously.
Carla, just going back to Jack Handy.
Yeah.
I've been scrolling through some of his
handiwork,
his deep thoughts, and I thought this one's quite appropriate for this moment in time. So Jack Handy in Deep Thoughts has written, to me, clowns aren't funny. In fact, they're kind of scary. I've wondered where this started, and I think it goes back to the time I went to the circus and a clown killed my dad.
What?
If you don't know Jack Handy's work, it's all that kind of funny little statement.
A little dark.
A little dark, but also quite funny, yes. Anyway, I just thought it was very relevant to clowns.
It's funny, isn't it? Because the whole clown thing within the context of everything that he did is neither here nor there, really, is it? He's just...
Totally immaterial. Totally immaterial.
And
he didn't even kill anyone dressed as a clown.
And that's the one thing that I think that it kind of in some ways takes away from just the depravity of just killing people, not dressed up, just luring people.
It almost makes him ridiculous. It makes him more ridiculous and not funny, but ridiculous and less frightening than the absolutely...
The real monster is just who he is,
Monster, really, really horrendous individual. Oh,
real monsters don't look like monsters, as Clarky said, and that's right. Just look like a middle-aged, overweight man.
Or a 20-something working in a call centre.
Correct.
You know, as I said before. Can
Welcome
be
to
anyone.
Foxtel's World of Entertainment.
Right.
This is Yoshi.
Yeah, it wasn't Foxtel I was talking about. Okay, so I don't really know where to go with that.
No.
I think death by execution is perfectly okay. I know you don't believe that, Paul. I know you don't believe in the death penalty, but I think for a person who raped, tortured, strangled, buried, threw him into a river, just was cavalier with these people because he thought he owned them, I am quite comfortable with the death penalty for this individual. The reason I'm not comfortable with the death penalty is on the off chance that you could possibly prove that he didn't do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was anything. He himself said, I did it. Like, I don't think that there's anything that suggests that he was an innocent person wrongfully
I'm trying to work out. So, you know, the death penalty makes murderers of all of us, right? And I don't think that's
just
necessarily something that we want to. I just don't think it's a good. You know, there's a whole lot of innocent people who all of a sudden decide that we're going to kill someone. That's not really great for everyone's well-being. But I'm trying to work out what an appropriate punishment is, whereby, you know, he should never. Death penalty is almost an easy out for him. I would love to be able to punish him for the rest of his days. I'm not trying to rehabilitate him, which is apparently what the prison system is about. Yeah. So I don't want that, but I literally want him.
You're going to take him to the trial by wine prison system, which is
but I still can't even work out what's appropriate, right? I just think he, like, every single last breath for him should be painful and traumatic, and I don't know how to inflict that on him, but you know, killing someone just makes it
without becoming the same level of monster that he was. Because he
I agree, but you know, if you could just like slow roast him over a volcano over the course of 20 years, you know, maybe that would be okay. I don't know. I don't know how to deal with this, right? It's kind of got me stumped because I don't think I've got it in my own head how to punish someone who is this horrible. And death is not the answer, right? Death will come at some point for him. I want it to be something more than death. I just don't know.
That's what suffering.
Oh.
What about a clown outfit where the makeup has got like a fair degree of acid in it, so when he does his face, it sort of burns his face a bit, and the inside of the clown outfit is made of thistles, like, you know, so he's scratchy and uncomfortable, and he's got to go and dance around, and then he gets home, he puts a cold cream on, and then the next day he has to do it all again. He's got to perform like a monkey.
That could work.
I don't think an itchy woolen clown suit is going to. It's like, oh, this is itchy. Oh,
thistles are a bit more uncomfortable.
Agreed, but still, I think that the idea being, I can't bear being in this is.
I was doing.
Well, I think it's quite maddening. I think it would be maddening if you had to wear that every day for the next 30 years.
I was doing some research for my next story, and I'm trying to get a balance right between horrific murders and hilarious comedy, and it's really, really hard to get, as we all know.
Not an easy balance.
No, it's really, really hard. But there was something that came up about, I was looking into revenge crimes, and there was this woman who had invented this thing that you put inside your vagina so that when someone tries to rape you, it's basically this...
Like a Venus flytrap.
No, it's worse. It's like a sheath.
Teeth.
It's a sheath, and if you put your penis into it, you are only going to shred your penis but you also then can't get it out. And so, like, it's horrific, right? And so it never really took off because most people aren't that vindictive. I don't know. Yeah, but like just all kinds of fuck. But I want something like that for him. I just don't know what it would be. But maybe it's like a crawl space version of this where you can crawl your way in with your dead body, but now you're fucked.
But hang on, could you make his prison cell he has to lie down.
The crawl space.
Make it the crawl space.
I like that.
With lime dripping.
Agreed.
Correct.
Like
Little lime.
Yeah, a little lime shower or
Leakage.
something.
Lime leakage.
Or what was the other one?
Gurgulations.
Gurgulations. Yeah, he
Yeah.
should definitely suffer gurgulations every day, whatever
For sure.
they are.
Well, I've got one nice thing maybe to finish it off, which is it's very small, but it's nice. So
We like nice.
Robert Peace's family were absolutely amazing, and the police department were very fond of them, and they just felt absolutely dreadful having to share news, but they worked really closely with them, and they believe and they find solace in the fact that they always said that Robert always thought he was going to do something really important, really special, and he thought he was destined to do something amazing, and they believe that by him being murdered and the way it went down was the fact that that was what led them to Gacy after this. So they find comfort in that.
Wow.
And I know it's not a lot, but it's really the only positive thing that I could come across in the whole terrible.
It's an incredible way of looking at a bad situation, isn't it? Like,
yeah, and that's his brother's been quoted as saying that, and I just think, wow, that's pretty amazing to be able to come out and say that. But I guess they've just got to try and find something hopeful and positive, otherwise it will just destroy you. Well, sorry, that was not really my most upbeat.
Oh, no, it was
That was
good.
amazing.
I'll shits
It was-
and giggles next time, people. I promise you that.
It was really good, Carla. I mean, when we do our little rider, we do talk about that we want to look into the weird shit, basically, that humanity has. And I think we say it better than that. How fascinating humans can be. And that fascination isn't just a positive one. It can be a highly negative one as well. And
Absolutely.
you've brought a particularly bizarro, interesting individual to our notice and attention, and also made me a bit frightened about everyone who I know now.
I do
Just in
think
case
this
one of
kind of
them
stuff
is
sometimes when
John
after we
Wayne
do this, I
Gacy.
think, I must go and mention to the children not to do this and not to do that, because I think that sometimes
Don't get into a car with someone.
I feel like
if they're
I
offering
really
you a
do,
job,
because these are adults. These are not
Yep.
just little children that are being let off. These are in all these situations, and it only takes someone to you trust the wrong person.
Just the wrong judgment.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh.
You were talking earlier about him picking people up and that sort of stuff, and I was thinking about when I went to England and I met Andy.
Yeah.
And
You
complete
take a
stranger.
chance, of
And I
course.
went back to his house and I stayed there for a week.
Yep.
And I remember we were up in the Highlands of Scotland and he's driving me around, and I had this moment where I thought, oh, this, like, we were really remote. There was no one around. And he turned to me and he said, "It's a great place for rape and murder." And I was like, oh, I
And you
really
thought,
hope you're joking.
you're really doing it for me,
speaking
hon.
from experience.
As it turned out, he
Jesus
was kidding.
Christ.
You had me at rape and murder.
I remember at the time thinking, I hope that's a joke, because I don't know, I don't know if he'd seen my face or something, but yeah, it doesn't take much to get it wrong, because as we said before, we just kind of hope everyone's not a killer. All right, thank you very much, Carla. As per usual, miss
Love
you
you long
already,
time.
and you, Clarky, can't wait to the next one.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Love you
Bye.
guys. Miss you.
Mwah.
Bye.
On a serious note, because Swanny couldn't cover all of the victims of John Wayne Gacy, and because we believe that those victims should be remembered, here they are: Tim McCoy, John Butkovich, Daryl Sampson, Randall Reffett, Samuel Stapleton, Michael Bonnen, William Billy Carroll, Rick Johnson, Gregory Godzik, John Sick, John Prestige, Matthew Bowman, Robert Gilroy, John Mowray, Russell Nelson, Robert Winch, Tommy Balling, David Talsma, William Kindred, Tim O'Rourke, Frank Wayne Dale Landigan, James Mazzara, Robert Peast, and the two victims who survived, Jeff Rignall and Robert Donnelly. Our thoughts and prayers go out to their families and hope that they are never forgotten. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.